Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome again to another experience of the Blu-XPerience. What's going on, guys? Welcome aboard, man. Happy Thursday or Friday morning or wherever, what time it is you are in the world today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for joining us for another excursion down the road of flight simming, real world flights, and so forth and so on. Just general discussions, guys. Good news and bad news today. Bad news. We don't have Blue on with us today, but I promise you, believe it or not, Blue's in the background right now running the show. He's Mr. Chief Engineer in the back, cueing the music, cueing the screens and the mic. So Blue is here, guys, but he's not going to be able to be on camera. He's not going to be able to talk to us. As you guys know, he did post in his channel that he ended up with, you know what, COVID, but he's in recovery. He's been recovering. He's not at full strength, so he wanted to make sure that when he comes back, he's coming back with a 100% fire show, and especially that voice of his that Blue's got. So if his voice is not 100%, he's not going to come on and talk. But anyway, he's doing well. He's doing good. So in chat, guys, show some love to Blue. Shout out to Blue. Exclamation point Blue in chat for all you guys. So that's the bad news, but he's going to be back. Good news today, guys. As you could see, off to my what? Is that left side? Yes. Fenix Simulations. That's a word that I didn't know anything about until the last, month or so. Never heard of it, never before. And so on today's show, what we're going to be doing, we're going to be talking to the chief man himself from Fenix, Mr. Amir. We're going to be talking about Microsoft Flight Simulator and the bright future that this platform has because of people like Amir and Fenix Simulations. So guess what? We're never going to waste any time. Without further ado, guys, let me introduce you to Amir. How you doing? Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being a part of this and taking our call, man. Thank you so much. How you doing?
Yeah, no problems. Thanks for having me on. It's a fun one. My first podcast. Never been on one before.
There you go, man. Hopefully I don't make you nervous. Now you should be nervous. We talk, we laugh, we smile,
Yeah.
we interact with chat, we take questions, we do all kinds of different things. And
Exactly.
so, for the next 30, 40, 50 an hour, we're just going to sit here and talk. And the reason we're going to talk is because we are so excited for what you're bringing to the flight simulation industry, and namely to Microsoft Flight Sim. As everybody knows, new platform came out a little bit over a year ago now. Man, it's been a year already, right?
It has been
And
a while, yeah.
exactly. And, a lot of us have been disappointed with the default airliners that came into the sim. Now, I know we know better. I know we know that all simulators come out with default airplanes, and then, at some point, developers will come and build on that. But for some reason, I feel like you guys came out the gate really quick, and all of a sudden, somebody says, "Hey, there's a simulator called Fenix Simulations is going to be doing an A320, on a proper one at that." And I have to tell you, no lie, I did smirk at it, go, "Okay, it looks pretty, but really and truly, is it going to be any good?" And not until V1 Simulation, Real World Pilot, another streamer here on YouTube, looked at the article, looked at the things that you guys were doing, and go, "Oh my God, these guys are actually going for the Gold Cup level here." So that's what we're going to be talking about today. Thank you so much for coming on again. And let me start by asking you this.
Okay.
I'm naive. How long have you guys been into the game? How long have you guys been into simulation as Fenix Simulation?
As Fenix Simulations, we've been together as a group for little less than a couple of years now. As individuals, most of our developers have, I think, at minimum 5 or 6 years of experience developing, various parts of various aircraft in various simulators. So a really wide kind of berth of experience. We've got people that haven't exclusively worked in flight simulation. They've worked in other sorts of simulation platforms and stuff like that. So really wide berth of experience. And yeah, I think some of our more experienced people have been doing this for about 15, 16 years, I would say. So they've been at it a while, kind of pre-FSX days, really early stuff.
So the team basically, you're saying, has a combined years experience of 30 years or more than her, at least. I'm not sure how much.
Quite comfortably, I would say, yeah.
Quite a lot. But for you personally, I mean, let me ask you, how did you being the leader, the CEO, the person who's running the show there, how did you come up with Fenix Sim, and how did you come up with the team itself? Get started with this.
Well, it's a it's a bit of an interesting one. So I'm not a developer myself.
Right.
I have just been kind of someone that's been a consumer in the flight simulation space for, you know, uh, 12 years or so now. I mean, I picked it up when I was just a kid, I was maybe 9, 10, 11, something like that. And just carried that love pretty much through my entire life all the way up until now. And yeah, I tried to get involved in the flight sim space a couple of times. Finally got something that you could pick up and run. Formed the kind of basis of the company in for basically coming up with the licensing for the ProSim software. So using that as the core, and we really picked that up and ran from there. Started adding people onto the team, and here we are.
Wow, wow, wow. So I guess the genesis of this idea is was it before Microsoft Flight Sim came out? Was it something you were
Um,
working on before that, or you
So
know?
I've always wanted to do an airplane. That has always been like the absolute coolest part of in my opinion, the coolest part of any simulator is of course the airplane itself. So for me, I've always wanted to do an airplane, and I think I was we were sort of all toying with the idea before, and then when MSFS came out, and we looked at it and went, okay, this is a phenomenal kind of entryway for us to say hello to the whole world, and this is what we should be focusing on. So that's kind of how we went about that, really.
Yes, I mean you did. You honestly did say hello to the whole world because yes, there is the Airsoft CRJ that came out. That
Hmm.
was it
Yeah.
first pair airliner, so to speak.
Hmm.
But you know what people want to fly already. It's either going to be a A320 or a 737 NG, right? And when you guys came out with this, I think for me personally, it was needed because the A320 mod, and let me just bring it up right now, the work that they've done so far on it to bring it to a point where we can fly it decently, especially on VATSIM and online, I appreciate those guys. But what we have seen that you're bringing to the table is just way above that, so to speak. When you start breaking down some of the systems, I'm going to ask you about some of those later on, and so forth. But when you set out to do this, was it like, hey, we need to do this on a certain level? What level were you shooting for? I mean, what level are you shooting for? In
I
the beginning
mean,
and now.
as close to a real Airbus A320 as possible, I suppose. That would be the kind of overall sort of level that we're going for. That's why we're doing some really deep, simulation of stuff that, quite frankly, nobody's ever going to see or ever going to really experience other than watching a number tick up on their screen. But that number ticking up has so much more behind it, and that part is really, really cool for all of us. So we're trying to do this at a level that moves the game forward just a little bit. I mean, I have so much respect for people like PMDG and FS Labs that move the game forward, in their respective, times. And they're still to this day kind of innovating and moving forward. So we're trying to kind of, as the new kids on the block, we're kind of trying to meet that, if not exceed it just a little bit, and just sort of, yeah, that's kind of where we're going for.
And it's funny, you just said something that I think applies to me. Me and Blue, we always talk about study level, high fidelity airplane, or whatever
Hmm.
you want to call it. Different people determine that differently. But I always wanted the airplane that's modeled the most, but I end up
Yeah.
literally still only using autopilot on and off.
It's
And,
you know
you
what?
know,
It's like a psychological thing for me. Like I, I've always very much appreciated feeling like there's something greater going on behind the screens of the airplane, or under my feet in the flight deck, so to speak. So for me, it's always been one of those things that has added so much to the experience. I mean, a lot of people make fun of the word immersion, but really, in this day and age with the visuals you're getting out of MSFS, do you really want to feel like you're right there? Because that's why we're doing all of that. So that's one of the big sticking points for me. Is a lot of people comment all the time and they say, yeah, but what's really the point of doing this? And that's exactly it. To feel like there's something greater, it gives all of your actions a little bit of gravitas, so to say.
no, it's true. It's like if I'm flying an airplane, an airliner in the sim, I don't want to know that I have actually I know the limits of the plane, then put it, or the limits of the system. If I know that I know the limits of the system, it's almost like my mind makes me bored. But if I know that this plane is so model deep that if I screw up, something might happen that I haven't
Yeah.
even thought about,
Yeah.
that heightens. So I think that's maybe what you're talking about. That heightens your sense of, adrenaline. Like, hey, I better not screw up. This thing is modeled really well. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah, it's like you go from, you go from kind of flying what feels bits of code to flying what then starts to feel a little bit like a machine, because of all the different parts moving together. And I think a lot of companies like, PMDG, FS Labs, and even the fly by wire guys, they kind of understand that to be, the really gold standard, and that's kind of what all of these guys are shooting for, because it works, in your brain, in your head, it definitely works. You start feeling like you're flying a machine.
Oh yeah. Definitely, definitely. That's the feel. How many people did you say were on your team developing this airplane?
So we have kind of about, I would say, 14 or so people. So we have some people that kind of do bits and pieces here and there, and then we have people that are working pretty much full time on this. So there's quite a mix. At any given time, the team can have a minimum of 12 and a maximum of, I think, 16. So yeah, quite a few people. We've yeah we've got a lot of devs. A lot of that makes up devs. But then we also have very specifically, you know invested into customer service and things like that. So we've got 3 guys on our customer service team already and no customers. So, that's kind
Wow.
of indicative of where we're going with that. So one of them is a rated A320 pilot. So he holds a type rating for the aircraft. And, so we've taken some time and thought about what our customers would really want to see out of that. And so we got someone with a type rating, so he can answer any questions instead of saying, "Oh, read the manual." We can just say, "Yeah, go on, talk to Mark in
Right.
Discord, and he'll help you out."
Yeah, because nobody reads the manual.
Yeah,
At
well,
least
I
not
mean,
me.
yeah, for sure. But then also people will have like really, really specific questions, right? That instead of sending them through to our support portal, we can just have a room in our Discord, which is kind of part of the plan, and they can just go throw their question in there, and Mark will reply to them. So we're basically trying to give you access to someone with a type rating to answer your questions as well. So that's kind of the level of thinking we've gone for the customer support with this.
Yeah, this is actually a whole. I'm just thinking about it, going, this is a whole level of commitment here that you're actually thinking about customer service ahead of time. Because some developers have a habit of their stuff is good, but you can't ask a question. They don't want to hear it. So hearing that you already have customer service people on your team, like, whoa, you guys are going in for like the level, and I like that. I definitely like that. I mean, given the time that we're living in, is everybody remote? Is there an office?
Yeah,
How do you
no,
guys
there's
manage
no
this?
no, there's no office. Everyone is remote.
Wow, wow. So how's the coordination on that? Considering I know it's software you can share back and forth, but
Yeah.
how is it managing so many people, all over? How's
It's
that?
not too bad. It gets a bit hectic sometimes for me, but I think we have a very open kind of line of communication with everyone. So sometimes they'll message me and say, "Hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me?" In terms of improving the workflow, because it's always a work in progress, especially when you're working online. Is trying to get a good workflow going. So we have a really nice line of communication and rapport with amongst all of us. So we're very open with saying, "Hey, can you respond to this a little bit quicker?" Or "Don't worry about that. It's okay," kind of thing. So very open, and that really helps with everyone working remotely. Um, Also, everyone seems to get along really well. They like the same kind of terrible old British TV shows and things like that. It's yeah. So again, that really helps with working remotely.
It's funny because somebody in chat says Fenix seems like they have all their ducks in a row already, and it sounds like you do, which is good. But let's get to the airplane. The first question I see it came up in chat goes, why the A320 versus a 7.3 or a 7.8 or something? Why the A320 for you specifically?
Well, it's a really tough question, but I mean, so part of this company came to be, when we basically sorted out our licensing with ProSim. So for us, it was one of those things we could develop something completely brand new from scratch and be here 6 years later, or we could, license from this incredible company and use that to build what we need to. So in that, we ended up with a choice. Do you do the A320? Do you do the 737? Because they've got both of them. We opted for the A320 because it's a much more complex airplane. And as kind of an introduction to us as a company, it would be really nice to put out something that would have people look at us and go, okay, that's they can do some work right there. Like, these guys know what they're doing, kind of thing.
Is I mean, look, I think it's the perfect choice, for the simulator. PMDG being in the room, they're going to be bringing out some kind of Boeing, more likely not the 737. We're all hoping. So the A320, I mean, the two most established airplanes in the real world airline industry, it's
Mhm.
great. And as you can tell from the response that you guys have gotten to dropping the stuff, it's good. I mean, how was the response on your end when you guys announced this? You know, there was some.
I was shocked. I was genuinely shocked. I was kind of expecting like, 1,000, maybe 1,500 people after like a month. That was kind of my upper hope for what we would do with marketing. At the end of 1 month, we managed, I think, 8 or 9,000 people, which is just nuts. So definitely a bigger response than I was expecting.
It shows you the hunger for the market, and as you said earlier, because Microsoft is such a pretty simulator, you want to have airplanes to complement the looks of that thing. So, hey, I mean, more power to you guys, man. But it just seems like you guys got this. Well, it's not out yet, but it's going to be out so quick. Usually, development cycles take so longer. Is that because of ProSim, or, you know?
It's a bit of a mixture. So we of course have the external architecture, which means that it's possibly a little bit easier to, change certain bits here and there and work with it. Um we we sort of looked at the whole thing, and uh it was one of those things where I'm a little bit lost for words on this one. Hmm. It's a challenging one to try and approach.
I hear you. I hear. Well, it sometimes you don't have all the answers to it, but it just comes to you, and it is the right choice, and the timing of it, and everybody's skill level, and everybody getting along together, so probably pushed it forward for you guys to get it out there. But you know, and also, looking at your website and looking at the different videos and updates that you guys have done. I think I looked at your first stream on Twitch when you're after the
Mhm. Yeah.
introductions of it,
Yeah.
and just the amount of traffic it generated, and just the external modeling alone. I mean, how many hours of work go into stuff like that? I mean, not
Oh,
being
it
a developer,
was
no
it was
idea.
months. I mean, the external model itself was being worked on full time for a year, more than a year, I think now at this point. So yeah, it worked on by two people full time, for more than a year. So definitely a substantial amount of work, and then a significant amount of work before that, even just to source all of the kind of the access that we needed, and then on top of that, organizing the trip to go, and then kind of getting the actual day and the actual airframes to then do all of the 3D scanning that we needed to do, and then working with those 3D scans to then make them usable for us to use as reference material and things like that. So there's so much work before the actual modeling even starts. So if you consider that, then yeah, there's a even more than a year.
No, don't just go over that so quickly. You said you're using actual 3D scans of the actual airplanes for that.
Yeah, so we got access to about 5 airframes.
Ooh.
They range from 319s, 320s, CFM IAEs, the lot. We really got a very nice mix of different airframes, age, etc. So we 3D scanned them. We basically went around the airplane, 3D scanned the flight deck, of course, and then things like the landing gear, the main gear, the nose gear, the engines, the nose shape, as much as we could get all the way up to the top, over the wings, under the wings, pretty much the wings as a construct as a whole. And then we couldn't really get over the top of the fuselage, just because we weren't allowed to fly a drone, and of course it's kind of difficult to get a 3D, all the way up the top. So we focused on these kind of core parts: wings, engines, landing gear, nose, flight deck, just the general shape and symmetry of the fuselage. And then we kind of had to, you know, work with the top a little bit. And yeah.
Get the shape the way it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
Look, I talk about 3D scans. I was looking at some of the pictures that are, and I'm looking under the wing section where I guess where the engine meets the wing, and I'm looking at
Mhm.
these separate panels with rivets all over it, the
Yeah.
different shapes of it.
Mhm.
So that's basically just from the 3D scan. That's exactly what it looks like. Because one would think it would be like smooth and all pretty and stuff. It's not,
Yeah,
is it?
so the 3D scan gave us dimensions and shape, right? So things like the rivets, that was something that, again, we went around the airplanes, we took thousands of photographs of each airframe, and we were kind of marking out where the rivets were. So you don't get the rivet
Man.
data automatically. You have to go take the images of everything you want rivet data for, and then we had to kind of take those images, and those rivets were hand placed. They were not pulled out of a 3D scan. They were all hand placed based on photographs, and really, really high resolution photographs, that we took, so that we could determine basically that this is one type of rivet, that's a different type of fastener, and this is a different type of screw. So again, these photos were all, enormous, like, resolution, and thousands of them.
Yeah. If you guys haven't seen this, man, if you guys watching this podcast or listening to it, if you've never seen renderings of this thing, you guys need to go take a look at that, because I was blown away and astonished. Like, I can't remember seeing this level of detail at this high fidelity, and I definitely appreciate that. And that's just the structure. By the way, is there going to be an interior for the airplane as well? It,
Yeah, so there's
yeah.
kind of a basic thing in place at the moment. We don't really know what we're gonna kind of do with that in terms of our dev resources post launch, but we'll see. There's something there. It's nothing, that's a focus. So
Right.
yeah.
I know. For flight simmers who spend 99.9% of time in the cockpit, we want a cabin. I never figure it out.
Yeah.
But it's good to know there's one behind you. All right. That's pretty cool. And then the thing that, got me my interest peaked in the airplane is the level of the different things you're doing. V1 Sim, as I mentioned earlier, we did talk about some of it, but I'm going to ask you about it anyway. Uh, this system called CPDLC integration.
Yeah.
For those of us like myself who don't fully understand what that means in Airbus, what is a CPDLC system?
So CPDLC is controller pilot data link communication, I want to say, is what the C is, but basically it's you and the ATC are able to text message one another. That's as bare bones basic as it gets. That's what it is. You're able to text ATC essentially. Now this can get more complex. It can get less complex. You can do things like request oceanic clearances via text, so you don't need to radio in for your oceanic clearances. You can get departure clearances via text now at quite a few airports. So you do what's called a PDC, a pre-departure clearance, and they'll give you all of your SID information and generally all of your flight information via the little DCDU screen that you see there. Um, so there's plenty that you can do, but the core basis of it is basically texting in a very simple way.
So it's an expensive texting system in a multi-million-dollar airplane. No,
That's the
no.
one. Exactly.
Yeah, I looked at it. I look at the article that you guys had on the fenixsim.com website, and just looking at some of the things where you can, accept or deny flight level changes and stuff like that in it. And it does way more than that. The question I was thinking about when I saw that is this now going to be VATSIM compatible or IVO
Yeah. No,
compatible? Okay.
it's
Okay.
already VATSIM compatible, so you can jump on the network and actually use it as is right now. So
Yes.
it's
So you've
yeah.
basically been working with VATSIM to make sure this is instituted
So it's
flawlessly.
using something called Hoppy ACARS.
Okay.
So this is it's pretty much the service that they use on VATSIM to do CPDLC stuff. So it's alongside VATSIM on the network, and I think it's its own program. But yeah, people do use it already. So it's, there are a couple of aircraft out there in P3D and FSX that I believe have CPDLC, and it's picked up quite a lot over the last kind of couple of years.
Jeez, I do most of my flying in the US, so I'm gonna have to find out if we do it over here. So
I've flown a couple of times on VATSIM in the US. I
mhm.
think I've seen it. I wanted to say I think I've seen it.
Jeez. Yeah, that right there blew me away. There's much more in the MCDU that I can't even touch on. I wouldn't even know what the right questions is to ask. I mean, what level do you go in the MCDU if you say, well, one is basic and 10 is the highest? How far do you think you guys are going with that?
Um, at the moment, I th- I'm pretty sure the MCDU does 99% of what the real thing will. There are, if you exclude things like engineering pages and stuff like that from the MCDU, then we're going for 10, So there are like engineering pages that don't really do much for the pilot. They kind of spit out data for engineers to look at and diagnose problems with the airplane, which we wouldn't be really able to integrate anyway.
Right.
But yeah, we're going for 10.
Jeez. Now, I mean, the reason why I'm asking also because, MCD, of course, and FMC and other airplanes is the heart of the airplane for any simulator. I've always been preaching that. Like, you can bring out a pretty bird and it looks good and it's all model right, but if the system is weak, as I said, even though I'm not going to be using half of the system, I still want to have the system there. And that just,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. As
definitely.
a counterpoint though, let me ask you, where do you put PMDG and people like FS Labs on that scale between 1 and 10, just so I have a relative understanding of what 10 means?
Well, unfortunately, I've never had the pleasure of flying a PMDG or FS Lab simulator. I've watched people fly them on P3D. I've only used X-Plane and Microsoft Flight Sim. I'm an
Tolus?
X-Plane guy. Yep,
So
Tolus.
Tolus,
There you go. Tolus.
where would you put Tolus on that 1 to 10 scale?
I will say Tolus is up there. I'm not a real world pilot. People be like, "Hey, you don't fly it right anyway," but I would say maybe like a 8. I don't know. That's
Okay,
just a
cool.
wild guess of mine. So,
Right.
so you're thinking along the same lines, or
Yeah.
with
I mean,
even with
so
more things.
it's it's sometimes it's a challenge because you have like different software versions of the MCDU. So some will
Mhm.
have more features, some will have less features. So if I say 10, and that means that people start to expect every single like software update, that the real A320 has, we will also have. That may not be exactly indicative. So we're gonna go for as many features as we can and mirroring it to the real thing as closely as possible. And to my knowledge already, it is pretty much 99% there in terms of normal operations and stuff like that.
Gotcha, gotcha. A question I have from chat: will it have CIDS pages? Not sure exactly what that
So
is.
I believe the CIDS pages are what I was talking about. So there is a very like initial implementation of this.
Mhm.
Now I'll be very transparent and say that I don't know if we're going to bring that out. Just because we're trying to find a way to have it mean something. And based on that we'll figure out if we can kind of expand on it and bring it in.
I got you, got you, got you, got you. And just even looking at the cockpit modeling and textures, one of the first shots you brought out that piqued my interest is the one where it's showing wear and tear. And then I saw somewhere where I was reading saying that even some of the knobs are not going to be exactly in the right click position because of over time they don't do that in the real world. Is that something that you guys are doing on it? You
Yeah,
know,
so it's not so much that they're not in the right click position. It's just that they kind of get wobbly after a while. They kind of sit off center just a little bit, and they kind of they're not exactly uniform. So yeah, we've done that. We've made it so that the switches and the overhead primarily, you can look at the landing light switches. If you go hunt for a shot with the landing light switches, you can actually see that they're asymmetric completely. And
it's
that's because the 3D scan that we did of the cockpit, of the airplane we referenced, had it exactly that way, and it was a reasonably kind of new airplane already, and it still had that. So we looked at that and we went, we've got to capture that. So we looked at the overhead, and yeah, you can see all of your seatbelt signs, things like that. They're just sort of a few millimeters here, a few millimeters there, at a little bit of an angle, a couple of degrees off of where they should be sometimes, you know. So that's what we've done. And the best part is all of those switches, all of the kind of dimensions for those switches and stuff like that are coming from the real airplane. So we're not even making up the wear. We're not even making up the kind of switch deflection. It's literally straight off a real airplane.
Jeez. Can I say thank you very much for not making this clean, out of the factory looking plane where everything is just pristine?
I am sure someone will mod some textures to make a nice clean airplane. I'm sure someone will. So I'll yeah, that'll be an interesting one to see the
No,
difference.
man. Just the I don't want to call it dirty, but just the overall wear and tear and a little
Oh
bit of
god.
grime on it just makes it
I
perfect.
do you want to know something funny? Now,
Yeah.
people have been coming to me complaining and saying, "This is way too grubby. It's way too dirty. This is disgusting. It's not what a real airplane's like." Now, I'm gonna tell you that we turned down the dirt and grime from the reference aircraft we took by about 40%. Like,
Jeez.
because we did not think it would be believable for people.
Right.
Like, genuinely did not think that it would be believable for people to look at that level of wear and go, "That's normal." And I think the airplane that we looked at was probably less than about 8 years old. I think something like that,
Jeez.
7, 8 years old, so not even that old.
I guess people don't understand that these are working machines that are better off flying than sitting on the ground. So they're used like every day, multiple
Oh,
times a day.
workhorses,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my background, I used to be a flight attendant back in the day for a couple of airlines. So,
Mhm.
one of the things that struck me when going to a cockpit, it's like the joy and the fun and the excitement is there, but the glamour is not.
Yeah,
Does that
yeah,
make
that's
sense?
exactly the one, yeah.
Yeah.
It's crammed, it's, it's quite gray because, we have our blue panels, it's quite gray, but yeah, it looks really cool, but, it's not exactly the nicest place to be. Like I told one of our modelers, I was like, "I would not touch one of these panels and then eat with the sa I would have to go wash my hands."
Jeez. Wow. 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 If you guys are just joining me, we're talking to Fenix and we're talking about the upcoming A320 and Microsoft Flight Sim and just going over the details of this thing. And I'm probably not going to know half the stuff in here, but just by hearing and reading and looking, you guys you're just doing a great job. A lot more questions in chat, to be honest, that I haven't even asked yet. It's coming out with what, CFM engines right now?
Yeah, so we're gonna do the CFMs as the initial launch. The IAEs will be added for free shortly afterwards. But we're just trying to kind of focus on one variant of the airplane to start with, just so we make sure that everything rolls out nice and smooth.
Jeez, so you guys hear that? It comes with the CFM, but you're going to get IE engines to go with it. Now, I mean, I probably shouldn't ask, but I probably should assume. But
Mhm.
the engines have different, how you call it? Mm, geez, what's the word I'm looking for? Different thrust capabilities,
Variations. Yeah.
variation. There you go.
Mhm.
So that's
Yeah.
going to be a model in there also as well. So
Yeah, so we're looking to do that. I mean, so of course between the CFMs and the IAEs, those differences are of course modeled in terms of kind of getting down into specific subvariants of engines. This is something that we want to put on the docket to do after launch. So right now we're using performance data for a 5B4, but we do want to kind of start adding in different engine types. For specific deep engine simulation, but that's something for down the road. So I can't really commit to even guaranteeing that we will do it. But it's something that we've internally discussed and want to do.
one to do. I got you. I got you. Um, I'm for other simulators. I've known that other developers have had written the flight modeling outside the sim, so to speak.
Mhm.
With Microsoft Flight Sim, are you guys tweaking the flight model that with Microsoft, or are you writing something completely different? How is the flight modeling on this one? Are you handling that?
So the flight model exists within MSFS, so it's not an external flight model. An external flight model at this point with how complex the weather integrations and stuff with MSFS are may not make the most sense, at least not for us. So we're using a flight model that exists inside of MSFS. Of course, it's a custom flight model, but yeah, it is working inside of the confines.
Good to go. I mean, I've heard tons of stuff from developers saying that they didn't have, not that they didn't have proper support, but just things weren't ready. I mean, how were you guys able to work with what you got from Microsoft initially to get this far down the road? I mean, how was that process like?
It was tough. I mean, there were certain things, I mean, there are certain things that we started this project kind of a year and a half or however long ago it was, and we still don't really have an answer for at the minute. But such is the way of things. You know, they have the Asobo guys have their stuff that they need to focus on right now. That's fair enough.
Right.
You know, so they're doing their thing and we're trying to do ours. And, you know, it's not impossible to overcome all of these sorts of things. I mean, some of the stuff we looked at at the start of the whole project, you know, we thought was impossible. Kind of 6 months later, it was like, okay, figured it out. And here's how we're gonna do it, kind of thing. So it's not impossible.
It can be done, but just maybe extra work on you guys' parts to get certain things,
Extra
I guess.
work, extra time. Yeah, it's extra work, it's extra time. But again, I fully appreciate that, of course, you know, the sim is still quite new. So, you know,
Yeah.
documentation and SDK stuff will be coming. And they've told us that, you know, it will be coming. So the
Yeah.
one thing that's awesome is that they are communicating pretty nicely, you know, at least to the community out wide.
That's good to know. I mean, we've given Microsoft such crap, and it's only been a year, and sometimes I feel bad for doing that, but it's still beautiful though, man. And with all the
It's
planes like this coming, yep,
it's it's tough for them, man. Like you look at these like crazy, you know, P3D aircraft, and everyone sort of forgets for a minute that you're comparing a 20-plus-year-old sim, you know, at its core, at its absolute basis, a 20-plus-year-old sim where people have learned over those 20 years how to deal with its kind of, you know, quirks, let's call it. And every sim will have its own quirks about how it you have to accomplish a specific thing. You know, from as simple to for as simple as turning on your landing lights. You know, and having the effect look correct. You know, there are so many different ways to do it between all the sims. So yeah, it's one of those things. We just need time to learn the quirks and to try and figure out how that works. And inside of 1 year, the fact that a little bit more than 1 year, the fact that PMDG are also telling us that hey, we're going to be seeing a 737 pretty soon. That's awesome. I mean, that's unprecedented. You know.
yeah. The motivation, the incentive, everything is there to get these things out, and then I appreciate you guys putting the effort, heads down on it. Another question from chat was, VR friendly at all? Have you guys considered that? Is that it
Yeah,
works?
one of our lead devs is completely crazy about VR. First thing he did, literally with one of the first alpha builds, wasn't to try and test it or anything. It was straight on to the VR goggles and into the flight deck he went. So, it works reasonably well so far. We are making some improvements with VR in mind, to do with kind of the display refresh rates and things like that. So yeah, we're not really actively working towards it, but anything we can do to help the VR implementation kind of along our way, we definitely do. So it is flyable inside of VR. I haven't heard any problems with it, but it's not currently undergoing active testing or anything of the sort. So if you do buy it and venture out in VR, I hear it's okay. I don't have a VR headset myself. I hear it's actually quite nice. But yeah, we're not kind of actively developing towards it. We will,
It's
however.
it's good to have a VR friendly person on the team to make sure certain things get pulled along while you guys
Yeah,
develop.
exactly. So he does kind of pop into VR every now and then, and he keeps giving me some feedback on how it goes and stuff like that. And you know, the last I heard, completely flyable, perfectly fine from that perspective. You know, you're missing maybe some QOL stuff that you may want or need out of VR for us to develop specifically. But other than that, you know, works fine.
Yeah. Yep. Look, I haven't gone VR yet myself. I've been holding off to get a VR goggles because for some reason I think once I go VR, I'm never going to go back to regular flying again.
Yeah.
And then my little YouTube audience here is going to suffer because they're going to watch it, me play it in VR and not get the same experience. So,
Oh man.
I mean, I know it's early yet, but any plans for variants, 19, 321,
Yeah.
once this
Um
rolls out?
Yeah, as long as, of course, as long as the basic aircraft is a success and it works out well, and you know, commercially it makes sense, then yeah, of course. I mean, the 19 and the 21 will be the first port of call, I think.
Hmm, that's good. That is absolutely good to go. And somebody asked about liveries as well. I mean, how many you're rolling out with liveries, of course. I saw an Air Jamaica livery. I'm
Mhm.
Jamaican, so I
Yep.
got excited when I saw that. Maybe my first flight would be to Kingston to JFK or something. Um, livery pack coming with it with the airplane, free of
Yeah,
charge. What are you
so there
thinking?
will be kind of 200 plus liveries when it does come out. How we distribute that is currently under development, so you can just kind of go and download whichever livery you really want to use, as opposed to downloading like an entire pack of 200 liveries, which can be quite excessive, I think.
Did you say
So
200 liveries?
yep, 200 liveries, including variants. So like there are like specific Delta A320s that have like
Wow.
different emergency exit markings. Some are yellow, some are red, something like that. So so we have those variants kind of looked at and done. Alongside that, we've also created, I think, 5 different versions of the wing for livery painters to use. So you've got kind of different metallic patterns basically over the wing and how it's done. So we've also included that, and the fifth one, there's actually four. The fifth one is specific to Lufthansa, so we've created that just because of Lufthansa. So you've got super authentic Lufthansa liveries with the wing textures and stuff now.
Wow. Look, let me just break character. You guys are not playing, are you? You guys are absolutely not playing, man.
we're trying to do it right. It's a project that's also a labor of love for quite a few of us. So we're trying
Right,
to do it
right.
right. We're trying to do justice by it.
Jeez, man. Wow. So, man, that's. I'm looking at chat. The chat is like, "Wow, are you kidding me?" That's good. Some guy spit water out of his mouth when he said 200 livers. Like, yeah, that's it.
Mhm.
We're good. Somebody has asked, how do you reserve like an airframe for a day just to get 3D modeling on that stuff done? I mean,
Oh,
what is
we
that
have
like?
so getting access to 5 of them was not easy at all.
Wow.
But, you have to make a lot of calls. You have to make a lot of calls, you have to do a lot of reaching out, and then you have to find the right people to get you kinda where you need to be. So, it's not one of those things where there's a process. It's uniquely challenging. I think it's one of the most challenging things I've done on this project is trying to get access to those airplanes. It took me months to source the right access. It was insane.
Wow, wow, wow. Look, I mean, that's actually incredible to be honest. I mean,
Oh
in
well,
this day and age, and yeah, go
we
ahead.
needed it. We
Yeah,
needed it because if we didn't, it's twofold, right? When you do 3D scanning, you have this awesome accuracy and stuff like that, but it also speeds up our work so much. It helps us so much in that perspective. So it's a double benefit, and it was worth putting the time in to try and find those airplanes.
that's what I was gonna say. Like in 20 in what's it 2021 we're in now, going on 2022.
Mhm.
I mean, this is probably going to be the only way to do an airplane correct or right.
Yeah, I
If you
mean,
have the technology, why not use it?
it was really interesting. I mean, we did a little comparison just as an anecdote. We did a little comparison to some other A320s out
Wow.
there with this 3D scanning data that we had, and it was quite surprising. I mean, some of them were kind of half a foot out in certain dimensions on the external, which was quite a lot. But you don't see it because, of course, I mean, what's half a foot on a 200-foot long airplane or whatever it is? So it's not that bad. But yeah.
Well, wow. Here's a $1 million question though.
Hmm.
Sounds. I have a
Hmm.
big pet peeve for sounds. I think, believe it or not, along with the system level, sound makes up a good maybe what 40%, 45% off an
Yeah,
airplane in
yeah.
the sim. How is that? What's that process like for you guys? What do you have?
Um, Also challenging. We are very lucky to have had access to the flight deck to just go and kind of poke things. Battery disconnected, just go nuts kind of thing. So we've done a bit of that. We've also purchased panels and kind of
Mm.
used those push buttons and recorded those sounds in a more professional environment than a flight deck, just to really get the right mix of it. And then when it comes to things like engine sounds, what I will say on that one is potentially. in a couple of weeks, we may have something to announce on that front. But
Ooh,
again, very potentially, we're still sort of working through the process of that one. So I don't
wow.
know if it'll happen or not, but if it does, awesome.
Wow, wow, wow. Well, we're staying tuned. We're listening for that, you know. So you said you you actually went out and bought Airbus panels just to record the sounds from it.
Yeah, so you can go onto eBay and you can buy panels for an A320. So we bought kind of bits and pieces of the overhead and kind of, other bits of the airplane switches and things like that to just get kind of a really representative sound. So if you go out into a flight deck and you take a bunch of sounds from the flight deck, they'll be good because we use professional recording equipment, but of course they're not going to be perfect. So you can add in a little bit more oomph to the sounds by also recording them with that, panel detached in a more professional environment. So that's kind of what we did.
Well, that's a whole different level of dedication right there. Never, I've seen people go on, of course, flight decks with microphones, taking samples as much as they can. They listen for it.
It's a
Wow,
common thing. It's not
it's
it's not that crazy. I mean, most of the add-ons that you use, I think, have done something fairly similar.
I got you.
So
Will there be any kind? I haven't seen any shots of any EFBs or electronic flight bags. Anything that's coming out for that, or not yet, or no?
yeah, so the EFB is coming. It will be after launch, but it is coming.
Definitely going to be an EFB. I guess EFB is one of those things. It's like a must-have now in every simulator.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Just to see it. Yeah, for real. That is something else. If you don't mind me asking, Amir, just a
Mhm.
personal question. What's your background like? I mean, and how did you get so much into aviation itself?
Well, aviation was a passion more than anything. So I've never worked professionally in the field of aviation. So that's, I've had a bit of an interesting one. I was in from kind of 17 onwards, I think 18. I was in the fire service for a few years, and then left that, went to uni, did a bunch of streaming. So I did a bunch of streaming and a bunch of YouTube. And then along the way, kind of built up enough of a little bit of a savings to kind of go out and start pursuing projects and things like that. So did a couple of projects here and there, then said this has been my first love, my first passion, always been kind of flight simulation. I've carried that through with me for years and years and years. So I wanted to do something there. So we started trying to look at that. So I yeah, I'm just a very, very very, very enthusiastic flight simulator guy. That's what I am. The guys that work with me, they are the kind of true stars when it comes to, their credentials and things like that. But I will just, respect their privacy. It's one of those things where they've basically said, look, it's quite difficult being a flight sim developer because you do get people PMing you and things like that. So, they sort of requested a bit of privacy, so we set it up this way.
No, it's awesome. I mean, I completely understand. There's way too many critics in the flight sim industry, just to wow, with everything you do, no, you can't please everybody all the time and so forth and so on. So I completely understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, but I had people sending me emails on unassociated email accounts about the A320, so I completely understand the request for priv. I didn't actually understand it before, to be fair.
Right.
I was like, "What are you talking about? That doesn't make any sense at all." And then now I'm a couple of months in, and I'm like, "Yep, I get it."
Yeah, you dare not fly online and make a mistake. Oh, you never hear the end of it. Well, that's not the way it's done. This is the way it's done, and so forth and so on.
Yeah.
The question I'm looking at chat here, and the questions keep coming in more and more and more. Hold on, let me just check. Yeah, there's a question: is there going to be any DRAMIS dreams, ONs, or
Uh,
later TCAS weather revisions?
Okay, so Drames and ONs aren't really gonna be something we do. ONs probably not, because it's not really fitted to any A320s out there at the moment. They're kind of coming through now. They're starting to trickle through. But yeah, they're not really kind of chucked on these airplanes much. So I'm afraid I'll have to say no to ONs at the moment. and Dream's pretty much the same thing as well. Later, weather and TCAS revisions, those will be something we do as we bring in expansion products and things like that. So your 19s, your 21s may see some upgrades here and there. I don't really know yet. We've not fleshed that out. What I would say is, for the moment, we're not developing or have any of that on our roadmap.
Got you.
No.
Well, you know I can't let you go without asking the one question that I'm sure you get every other day. Release date.
Oh.
How far along the road are you guys on this? 80%, 90%, 70%? What are you thinking?
I'm super hesitant to kind of give out a release date out wide.
Really
Like
understand. Yeah.
it's one of those things. It would put a lot of pressure on our devs and things like that. I mean, so we're looking to go into beta for in a few weeks. That's kind of where we're at. We're looking to enter beta in a few weeks. So we have a couple of bugs and a couple of things we kind of want to squash first, and a couple of bits and pieces we want to add to the airplane, and then we want to move it into beta and start kind of rigorously, trying to break it.
Yep. That's good. I mean, look, yeah, the worst thing you guys need is pressure on you. And based on how you've already done the 200 deliveries, you take your time with the scanning, you're getting panels, all this stuff. I know you guys are not going to rush it out until you're satisfied that
Yeah, I mean,
it's,
I actually got into this discussion. I think it was last night or 2 nights ago with someone in our Discord that said, "Look, you need to you need to step on the gas. You need to go for it." And I was just like, well, yes and no, because again, he was basically saying you need to give us a release date and you need to step on the gas kind of thing. And I was like, yes and no, because we don't really need that extra pressure. And also we've spent so much time, to do 95% of the project. And if we're going to rush the last 5% of it, it's just going to do a disservice to the other 95%. So it's just sort of not worth it when you've seen this project all the way from day one to where it's at today. You aren't in a rush to get it out just because you want it out. You want to kind of do right by it at this point. So, that being said, we're also quite conscious of things like feature creep and stuff like that. So we have our eye on kind of a time frame. We have our eye on a specific region of time, and we're trying to push towards that.
and knowing this community, you're going to spend all these time and years in perfecting everything, and the one little thing gets past you, you're never going to hear the end of it.
Yeah, I'm already finding that. It's like I put out a bunch of like marketing material, and it was essentially some feature review that I was doing, and I think it was the hydraulic feature review that I did, and focusing purely on the hydraulics and kind of the hydraulic system. And I get a bunch of comments from people going, oh yeah, that's cool and all, but I noticed that the engines don't have different temperatures. Are you planning to do that? And I'm just like, well, that's not what we were talking about, but yes, we are. It's like, so it's people pick up on everything. So
Yes,
yeah,
they do.
no
They
escaping it. No escaping it.
Man, oh man, oh man. I'll tell you, boy, it's, and of course, the next question is price. And there was a quote that you did that I was trying to find, but pricing.
Do you, the Reddit picture, I'm guessing, the screenshot that
That's the
someone
one.
posted on, do you know
Yeah.
how surreal it is to see people kind of talking about a screenshot of a comment you made a year ago? It's so surreal. I was just like,
God.
what do you guys, oh no. um so yeah, I mean, look, we're gonna go for something customer friendly. There's no point doing all of this and then we have this great, huge new market, um with Microsoft Flight Simulator and stuff like that, only for us to just price it into the stratosphere and nobody buys it, or it doesn't get kind of, the wider mass market kind of thing. So, that being said, of course, it's not purely intended for mass market. It is still quite a niche inside of the MSFS sphere, I guess.
Right.
So yeah, it'll reflect that. So I think in light of what you've been paying for P3D and explain stuff, this will seem kind of correct, I suppose.
Right. Definitely. And as far as Xbox compatibility, because I know I've gotten the question, is it going to be for Xbox?
Yeah.
Um,
So
yeah,
no, unfortunately
right.
not. We will not be supporting the Xbox. It's yeah, that's not gonna happen,
I know.
unfortunately.
Sorry, Xbox guys, that's just your taste into the simming. You got to come to a PC to get the full-fledged function. Wow, wow. Amir, would
Mhm.
you believe it's been an hour already?
Wow.
Told
I
you. Yeah.
cannot. Yeah, that
Oh yeah.
kind of flew by, didn't it?
Oh yeah, it did. I mean, because you're talking about an airplane that you're obviously passionate about,
Mhm.
and you're understating your role in all of this, I think, but that's good. I like it. I mean, anything you want the audience to know? I mean, looking for from you guys as far as this airplane is concerned, we,
Uh, well, nothing specifically, really. I just think, we're gonna try and kind of let our work speak for itself as much as possible. So yeah, I mean, I know that a lot of people are still uh quite conscious that we are a brand new company and promising a lot of stuff. So, part of what we're planning to do with our launch process is to just sort of let the airplane out to reviewers before we actually release the airplane so that people know what they're getting for their money, so that they know what they're buying, they know what they're getting for the money that they're paying for it. So that's kind of part of the plan because I completely understand and appreciate that it is a brand new company. So we're going to be doing that. So, if you are skeptical, hopefully something like that will help, uh, you know, help make you make the decision that, makes sense for you, I guess.
Exactly. And if you guys go to Fenix, FENIXSim.com, you guys can get to see a lot of what we've been talking about here. Also, Amir does some streaming on Twitch whenever they have new features to show. V1 Sim in the chat says he learned more about the hydraulics from your video than what he actually learned in the real airplane. So
Oh man.
that's good to know. So yeah, you guys are on Twitch. You guys have your YouTube channel. You're on Facebook as well. So you
Yeah.
you guys could follow up on that. I certainly am. I'm certainly hoping and praying and wishing that everything goes speedy for you guys and well, and then you release it. That's what we're looking forward to. But let me just say, I appreciate you guys taking the time out to talk about the airplane. It's going to be a must-have airplane, in my opinion.
Mhm.
That's it, period. That's all that counts. I'm just kidding. And as you could tell, the CEO of Fenix Sim is telling you guys today what to expect, what it's like, and actually show what I like about what you guys are doing. You're actually showing it. you're
Yeah.
you're not afraid. You're not holding it a secret. You're actually showing the videos of it. You're showing exactly how to operate, the buttons being
I
pressed,
mean,
and so on and so on. I
yeah,
like that.
the whole showing kind of, philosophy extends to how we did the whole reveal of the airplane as well. I mean, we could have started marketing a year and a half ago and kind of shown off even just kind of the model in white, without any of its textures on or anything like that, and just done that whole thing. But we really sort of just waited until it looked like it was in a finished or complete enough stage, that we could come out and say that, hey, look, this is what it is.
Got you. Got you. Quick question also. I mean, I did
Mhm.
come in chat. Somebody asked, are the textures photoreal or custom using programs like Photoshop or, Painter 3D or
Uh,
something like that?
it's a lot of, well, I think it's a mixture, but I think they use Photoshop. Yeah.
Got you. Got you. It's a mixture of everything. How are the frames on it? I know you did a
So
frame demo.
frame
Yeah.
wise, I compare against the default A320 because it is on everybody's system and it's representative enough. If I reference the A320, you can just kind of go on to your MSFS and boot that up and get an idea there. So the last I checked, which was just after Sim Update 5, we were 1 frame per second better than the default A320.
Ooh, that's great, actually. That
Yeah.
is that is going to be great.
It's I
Well,
posted some screenshots somewhere, I think it was in our Discord.
yeah, I think I
So
saw
yeah,
that. Wow, that's good to know because Microsoft requires a higher level system than any other sim, but you know why?
yeah.
Because of the way it looks and operates. So that's
I mean,
good to
we
know.
for the moment we don't really make any guarantees on the performance side of things because this sort of thing, can change from sim update to sim update. Some specific add-ons are hit by something that aren't, touching any of the others kind of thing. So at the moment, I'm very careful to use the words at the moment. It's 1 FPS better than the default A320. But yeah.
1 FPS is something to brag about. Trust me.
I think it's actually really it's like 0.7 FPS. I think actually was what the actual difference was.
No, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool. Wow, wow. I can't wait. Open beta or closed beta? I'm not sure if you said it before.
So it's gonna be a closed beta. We are gonna be our testing has kind of a couple of different phases. So we're in alpha 1 right now. And then we're gonna start expanding out that team, and we're gonna call that the second phase of alpha, which is where we essentially nothing huge happens on the development front. It's essentially just bringing more people into the fold and getting a wider range of kind of systems and experiences using the airplane and things like that. And then we'll move into beta from there. So, and it will be a closed beta, unfortunately, but yeah, we will be having quite a range of people in there as well. So a bit larger than the typical flight sim beta team, I would imagine. But we would look for something kind of north of 25, 30 people. So yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Well, Amir, how was your first podcast?
Yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty
There you
good.
go. That's it, man. Relax, talking, discussing. You have given us so much information, so much detail, so much thing to think about when this airplane comes out, and we're definitely looking forward to it. If I could speak for my audience and the community, and we can't wait. We can't wait. That's all I can tell you. So thank you so much for giving us over an hour of your time dedicated to it. Remember, guys, fenixsim.com. FENIXsim.com. You can also check them out on Facebook, and you can check them out on Twitch for live streams. Or there's some recorded videos on Twitch as well. So, Amir, thank you so much, man. On behalf of me, myself, and Blue, thank you for coming on the show. And hopefully we speak again at release time. You got to come back when you release it, man. You got to
for
come back
sure,
and tell us
sure.
about it. All right.
For sure. I'd love to. Thank you very, very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Thank you, Amir. We will speak soon, man. Thank you very much. All right, guys. That's it. Another episode of the Blu-XPerience. I hope you guys enjoyed that one. Lots of detail, lots of technical things. But this is what we need in the flight sim community. Airplanes like this, developers like this, sort of, who are willing to come on and share with us what they're doing behind the scenes to make sure that you guys have an enjoyable experience of their products, and just being transparent and open. I mean, for God, they already have customer service people, and the plane is not even out yet. So I love that. But guys, check us out again next Thursday for another installation of the Blu-XPerience. We're going to have a very, very special guest coming along for that one. We'll talk more about it. And also check out, hopefully Blue's going to be back streaming. I don't know. I'm going to call it maybe Monday. I don't know. Let's see. I'm hoping that Blue is back. I'll be back as well tomorrow for the FNO or XP or something. But I will see you guys again. Thank you so much. Have a great evening. Appreciate you guys in chat and the stream. Take care. We are out. Talk to you guys later. All right. Bye-bye.